electricity market.
Exactly.
Question number 2, Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Economic Development. Does he agree with the Prime Minister's statement, quote, "The reality is even Wellington is dying and we don't know how to turn it around. All you have there is government, Victoria University and Weta Workshop"?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
As the member knows, the Prime Minister himself has said that he could have chosen his words better and that he was referring to the fact that the head offices of large corporates have migrated from Wellington to Auckland over the past 25 years, which of course I agree with because it's true. However, we are very fortunate to have a number of thriving, innovative and successful businesses in Wellington, like, for example, Weta Workshop, which may have not been the case, of course, if the Labor Party had gotten their way and we'd driven the Hobbit films offshore.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Order. 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 Supplementary question.
Further to the Minister's answer, if the Prime Minister doesn't think Wellington is dying, why did he say it was?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, I think I did answer that in the opening question, which is to note that the Prime Minister himself says he could have chosen his words better. But I have more good news for the member, because the Household Labour Force survey came out this morning and Wellington's regional unemployment rate has fallen by 0.9%, with an additional 14,000 more people in jobs in Wellington than in the previous quarter. So the good news, Mr Speaker, is that Wellington is picking itself up and growing well.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
What responsibility does he take for Wellington being dying or under pressure or whatever the Prime Minister's latest phrase is today, after his government has slashed thousands of public service jobs and failed to support the manufacturing or other sectors in this city?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, it's very interesting the world that member lives in, but the reality is, Mr Speaker, that this government is investing hugely.
Order. I'm sorry to interrupt the Minister, but we not have the ability to hear the answer. Point of order, Honourable Trevor Miller.
Mr Speaker, it was a pretty straightforward question, and the answer was prefaced by abuse of the member.
The difficulty was, it was a relatively straightforward question, I agree, but I wasn't able to hear the answer because of the noise. Order. Order. I will now ask the Minister to continue with his answer.
Mr Speaker, this government is taking responsibility for working very hard alongside Wellington to grow the Wellington economy in areas such as infrastructure, with the ultra-fast broadband, the roading, which incidentally the member could help actually if he gets some of his friends on the council to start supporting some of the transport projects around Wellington. Innovation, our investment in Callaghan Innovation, our R&D co-funding for businesses in Wellington, Hutt Valley, Porirua and so on. The development of Victoria University, which is going very well, has just got an excellent result out of the PBRF. And of course the industry development in areas like the movie industry, tourism and international education.
Supplementary question, Mr.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
When the Prime Minister said, "We don't know how to turn it around," is that a reflection on his Minister of Economic Development's complete lack of any plan to help grow the Wellington economy?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
It's always difficult, Mr Speaker, when I end up answering the question before the member asks it in his next supplementary. I've just given him a huge list of things that the government is working on to develop the Wellington economy. If it's helpful to the member, I'll repeat that list again for him. There's the infrastructure we're investing, the ultra-fast broadband, the roading, and in fact the commuter rail, where we're helping Greater Wellington actually get a 100% modern fleet as a result of this government's investment. Our investment in Callaghan Innovation, which of course is headquartered in the city. Our involvement in national science challenges, where organisations like NIWA and so on are actually participating in that. Our involvement in the city's business incubator, the development of Victoria University, the refocusing of the polytechnics to make sure they're focused on skills for local industries.
That answer is quite sufficient. Thank you very much. Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
What is his response to Wellington property developer Ian Castles, who said that John Key should resign because he's not representing New Zealand or valuing what Wellington has to offer?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, Mr Castles, of course, represents represents the commercial property industry, who have struggled with the fact that the government has not kept building brand new office buildings in Wellington every 5 minutes like we used to under the Labor government, when we were setting ourselves up under Labor for a decade of deficits because of the amount of public sector spending they were doing. And we're not doing that anymore. We're not able to do that anymore. What we can encourage is private sector investment, the encouragement of the growth of industries in Wellington. And if the member would like, I'm more than happy to go through the list one more time.
Supplementary question, Honourable Annette King.
Does he stand by his comments this week on News Talk ZB about Wellington when he said, Annette's right? There's very big investment going into the IT sector and the high-tech manufacturing sector. There are lots of staff based here. And has he thought about how he could turn around the Prime Minister's ill-informed views about Wellington?
Honourable Stephen
Well,
Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I do stand by my comments on News Talk ZB this week, including my offer to support Annette King in her campaign for the Mayoralty. And I've run a couple of campaigns in my time, and I have to say, Annette, you do a moderately better job than the current man.
Question number 3. Question number 3, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.